Hello everybody, my name is Mike Geig. Yeah, of everyone who said you can't hear me, now you can hear me, because I just started. How's everyone doing today? Hopefully you're all doing great. Yeah, good, now you can hear me, fantastic. Sound check. So today, we will be kind of wrapping up a lot of the things we've learned in the past by making cinematic or movie-like Hollywood-esque explosions. So yeah, so we should have some fun with that. Now, if you haven't seen the explosions video last week, the particle effects video a couple weeks ago, the audio effects video a couple weeks ago, that's fine. It would be very helpful if you had seen those, but you haven't, or if you haven't, it's not really a big deal. They've all been recorded. You can go back and watch them again. And these are, this is obviously being recorded as well. So you can always go back, rewatch, and learn all that stuff. Cool. So, obviously, before I begin, like I always do, I'm going to go ahead and say if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, concerns, etc., feel free to follow us on Twitter at Unity3D, at Mike Geig, which is me, at Will Goldstone, and at The Ant Ranch. And you can let us know any suggestions you have, any comments, concerns, whatever, gossip, any TV drama, whatever, I don't really care. So yeah, just follow us and chat with us online, and yeah, anything we can do to help, just let us know. Yeah, alright. So this is, like I said, this is kind of a session to wrap up a bunch of topics at once. It's the first time I'm doing a session like this, so hopefully it's successful. Usually I just cover one very basic topic, and this one is kind of what I call a PIT, a putting it together. And so, you know, obviously if this is successful, we'll do this more often with more larger scale projects. I don't know if it will be. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. All right. So before I begin, most of you saw it. In case you didn't, I like to make a graphic for everybody since they seem to have become popular. So here it is again. I'll post it for you. Yeah, just because I was like, I'm doing an explosion session today. I'll make an explosion picture. Yeah, man, no one can top my paint skills. I mean, like I said, top of my class at Paint Academy. So pretty much just unstoppable. Exactly, he's not looking at the explosions. 2 guns and a pink tie. This guy, yeah, is pretty awesome. So that's actually a picture of me. In case you didn't know, that's a self-portrait. It's pretty much what I look like all the time. Actually, when I type on my keyboard, I'm typing with my guns. So yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's pretty accurate. Anyway, okay, enough of that. Might want to gain some weight. If you knew me in real life, you wouldn't think I needed to gain weight. Trust me. Yeah. All right, so what we're basically going to do is we're going to kind of alternate between 2 scenes. We're going to have a builder scene where we're going to put this effect together, and then we're going to have a test scene. And the test scene is what you're seeing right here. This is what we did last week with the fun with explosions, and I'm actually just going to build this real quick here. So I'm actually going to get rid of that sphere, and what I'm going to do is, by the way, these are all the Robot Lab assets. So if you go to the asset store, just do complete projects tutorials and look for the Robot Labs. This is free from Unity, comes with a bunch of stuff. So yeah, so you can check all that stuff out. But what I'm basically going to do is just kind of build some stuff here. Oops, that was the wrong button. So that when we blow stuff up, we have some stuff being blown up, right? Because that's the fun part, right? So I'm just going to build a test scene real quick. My crate pyramid. Oops. I think I may have made a couple duplicates there. Yeah, there we go. We'll put that there, and then we'll also build a couple more. Sorry, this part's kind of boring, just watching me type. Okay, or watch me create that. So what we're going to be doing is this is just so we can kind of get a feel for how everything's going to look. Okay, so this is our test scene, and if I run it, there we go. We're just going to have just kind of a little box fort here. Call it, I don't know, 3D Angry Birds. Well, actually, don't call it that because I don't want to be sued. But yeah, so just some boxes go with that. We'll call it I don't know, less than happy aviaries or something. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, so here we go. This is our kind of our test world here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create some TNT here, and so I'm going to just drag another one of these boxes out here, and I will right click in the project view. I'm going to create a prefab, which I'm going to call TNT, and I will grab my cube here. I will bring it back onto TNT, so now it's a TNT prefab. I'll delete that. Bring out my TNT prefab, and we will, let's see, where's my material? My material, I'm going to make it red. Oh, that's just one spot on it, isn't it? Where's the... No, wait a minute. I made you a new prefab. Sigh. Okay, sorry about that. I guess it didn't really matter. I just don't want all of these to be TNT, so I'll just make this really easy. Let me delete this. This is the one part I didn't run through in my script. I was just like, oh, how hard can this be? So let me drop this in here, replace that, delete that. All I'm basically doing is I just want a block, and this block is going to be what I blow up. And that's the whole gist of it. So this will just be our TNT, fine, whatever. And I also have a script, and this script is actually all the same. You're right, because I'm changing the shader that wasn't all of them, so it actually was technically a separate prefab, but oh well. It's always when you're live and you're just like, your brain just kind of dumps out on you. I have a script here, and the script itself is not important, so I'll show it to you real quick, and if you want to rewatch and all that, you can do that. But basically, none of these are the script I want. Here we go. TNT script. All that other stuff was stuff from some other thing. So we have this TNT script, and this is, if you watched the explosive session last week, you're going to know exactly what's happening here. So basically, when I click, we're shooting a ray cast from the screen to... is this the right script? This is not the right script. Well, this will work. I mean, this will do the exact same thing. So basically, on mouse down, we're shooting a ray cast from the screen. We are getting the hit. We'll be hitting the cube. The cube will be getting colliders, and then we'll be adding an explosive force to everything. So this is exactly what we saw last week. All right. Now that I'm looking at it, because I just put this together this morning, I realized that I don't need this part nor this part, because on mouse down will trigger when I click the cube, so I don't need to make sure I hit the cube. That's redundant. So this is actually not good code. Sorry about that. I was just trying to put it together quickly, and I completely ignored the fact that I don't need this bit here, nor do I need this bit here. You know what? As a matter of fact, I'm not happy with not good code, so let's just fix this real quick. So those watching at home or in the pre-recorded can just transform.position, can have the good code. So sorry about that. This will fix it right here. There. Now our code is efficient and clean and good. So basically, on mouse down, we'll be creating an overlap sphere of all of the colliders around our TNT, and then we will be adding an explosive force to all of the ridge bodies, and then we'll be destroying the TNT because the TNT itself is going to blow up. And then I have this code here, instantiate explosion. This is commented out. This is my placeholder for the particle effects we'll be generating, right? Which we will be able to click and drag there. I haven't made the particle effects yet. We haven't made the particle effects yet, so it's grayed out, right? I've commented it out. So let's see here. So let me take my TNT script and put it on my TNT right there, so we can see it. Let's give it a force of, like, say 20 and a radius of, say 5. I have no idea if those numbers are going to work, but let's check it out. And when I click this, boom. Okay, so we have an explosion. Cool. If anything that I just did or said did not make sense, go back and watch the explosion video from last week. All right? That's where I cover the forces and explosions and things like that. This is all about this cinematic effect, so I'm not spending a lot of time on it. All right, so I have my test scenes set up here, or done here. I'm going to go ahead and save this. And then I'm going to create a new scene. and I'm going to call this builder scene. I'll go ahead and save it. In scenes, I will call this effect builder, whatever, you can name it whatever you want. But this is just going to be like an empty space for me to make my particle effects. And so we could do real simple particle effects, like just throwing little dots out, but that's boring, right? And we could do like a fireball, right? But again, that's kind of boring. The real cool stuff happens when we put a bunch of particle systems together to create you know, a much more elaborate effect. So we're going to have fire, we're going to have streaks, we're going to have flames, we're going to have smoke, right? And all of these are going to be different effects that we can put together, or different systems that we can put together and have a really cool effect, and that's what we want to see. So we're going to go ahead and start that. And I'm going to start that first with a parent object, which I'm just going to create an empty game object. And for simplicity, I'll just put it at 0, 0, 0. There we go. And I will name it explosion. Alright, and I'm going to come back here to the folder. I've created a folder just to have all this stuff. I've called it Cin Explosions, as in cinematic explosion. And in this folder, I'm going to go ahead and create a prefab, which I will call explosion. And I'll just click and drag on here. Cool. So now, as we're doing anything to this object, and we're hitting this apply button in the inspector, it's saving it as an asset file that we can reuse in a bunch of different scenes. Okay, that's specifically what we're doing here. And so we create a prefab, we click and drag and put that on there. Another note, I'm going to go kind of fast because I have a lot of cool stuff I want to show you, and I like to keep it to a specific time frame. So, yeah. Okay, and so the next thing we want to do is we want to create our material. So I'm going to go to create, and I'm going to make a folder called materials. And I'm not going to use the default particle material because that, you know, it's nice and all, but it's boring. So inside this folder I just created, I'm going to create a new material, which I will call Fire Core. The Fire Core. All right. And I will even back up a level and create a new folder for textures. In the tweet that went out and on the Facebook post, there was a link to assets, and those are the assets we're going to use. So in textures, I have my Twitch assets folder here, and I have a textures folder, and I'm going to grab Fireball, and I'm going to drop that in textures. If you don't have these, that's fine. You can just watch. It's not a big deal. But I'm going to build this with these. So now that we have the Fireball in there, sound is a little late. Yeah, that happens sometimes. A little out of sync. Just kind of hope it syncs up for you guys. With the Fire Core material, I'm going to go ahead and change my shader to Particles Additive. Since this is it's a particle effect, we want to use particle shaders. Alright, so I'm going to make this Particles Additive, and then I'm going to choose my texture, and I'm going to choose the fireball I just drug in there. And then finally, I am going to change the alpha of the color down to 37. It's going to be a nice faint effect. Okay, so this is the material I'm using. So basically, it's Particles Additive, the fireball texture with a 37 alpha, and that's that. And using this, we're going to be able to make it actually a pretty cool looking fireball effect, which we will obviously add to add a bunch of other stuff. So now that we have our material, let's go ahead and create our first particle system. So I'm going to go to Game Object, Create Other, Particle System, and I'm going to put that particle system immediately under Explosion. And this particle system I will rename to be, I don't know, Central Fireball. Whatever, it doesn't really matter. And I will put it at 0, 0, 0 with a rotation of 0, 0, 0. Alright, just like that. Alright. And then I will click on the explosion parent and just hit apply, and that adds the central fireball to my prefab, keeps it all kind of together. So this part is going to be kind of boring because all I'm really going to be doing is going through all of the components of this particle system and showing you kind of what we're going to do to make this core. And you're going to see how it's going to transform from what you're seeing here into something that looks kind of like a fireball, which is actually pretty cool. Alright, so first thing I want to do is I want to change my duration to 3. And since this is an explosion, I do not want it to loop. Alright, I don't know why that's stuck on my screen. Okay, and then we want to have some random stuff, so it's not always the exact same. So I'm going to change, and let me expand this here. I'm going to change the start lifetime to be a random between two constants, and I'm going to make those two constants 0.4 to 0.8. Alright, just like that. And then I'm going to change the start speed to also be between two constants to make it 2 to 4. And I'm going to change the start size to be 10 to 20. So 10 to 20. And then finally the start rotation, not finally, just for this particular section, is going to be negative 180 to 180. Just like that. We'll leave our start color the same. No gravity, no inherent velocity. We'll be doing world space, and we will play on wake, and our maximum particles will be 20. So if I stop and resimulate, that's what we see. Okay, so we get this kind of neat little fireball-y thing. All right. Obviously, it doesn't look like much right yet. So yeah, you'll see as we add to it. Next, we're going to go into emission, and we're going to make it 0. We don't want this to emit any particles over time. Instead, we want to create a single burst of 20 particles. Right? So not emitting over time, just a single burst of 20 particles. So if I do this again, we kind of just see that. Just like that. All right? Real basic there. Okay. And so now, let's go ahead and look at our shape. And we're going to go from cone. We don't want cone. So we're going to do hemisphere with a radius of 0.01. So if we resimulate this now, we can see how they don't kind of move up as much. They sort of move out. So hemisphere, kind of explosion-like. Oops, did not want to do either of those two. All right. Next, I'm going to do color over lifetime. And my color over lifetime, I kind of want it to fade in and then fade out. So all I'm really going to do is I'm going to just click about here and about here. And I'm going to change my edges to be completely transparent. So it's going to go from 0 alpha to 100% alpha, and then from 100% alpha to 0 alpha. That'll make it fade in and then fade out. All right, that's pretty much what we're going to do there. And yeah, you'll see we'll use that one quite often. All right, so after our color over lifetime, let me go ahead and minimize some of these. We will do size over lifetime. Now our size over lifetime is going to make them get kind of big and then get smaller again. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go between 1 and between 0 and 1.5, and I'll bring this all the way down to 0, and I'll bring this all the way down to 0, and then somewhere about here I'm going to bring this up. So now we'll see it get bigger and then smaller. See how that works? Kind of fades into these little sparks, if you will. Alright, so bigger and then smaller. We want to set up a rotation over lifetime, and this one is going to be just a random between two constants, and we're going to go between negative 180 and 180. So not only is it going to start with a random rotation, it's also going to rotate randomly over its lifetime, right? And then you can't really tell the rotation right now because they're circles, but once we get the other one, it'll be much more apparent. The last two we're going to look at is texture sheet animation. Remember, Firecore here is a texture sheet with 1, 2, 3, 4 frames, right? So we're going to want to animate those textures. So I'm going to click the texture sheet animation. I'm going to say that it's 1 frame on the X, 4 on the Y since it was stacked vertically, and it's a single row, and I want it to go through 2 cycles. All right, and then finally, I'm going to come to my renderer, and I'm going to drag my Firecore over. All right, my Firecore material. My sort mode is going to be by distance, so the particle effects layer correctly. That's very important. We want to do by distance. I'm going to leave no fudge, and I'm going to uncheck cast shadows and receive shadows, and my max particle size is going to be 4. All right, so now this one is done. This is our center fireball. Let's see what it looks like. Well, that looks pretty darn cool to me. All right, boom. Okay, yeah, that's pretty neat. Sorry, everyone's clamoring for these assets here, and I posted them before. Let me post them again real quick. Sorry that you all have to wait. I just want to post these again. The assets are posted in chat, There you go, if you're trying to find those. But yeah, so there we go. So we have a nice little fireball. So now that we've built this, let me come up to my explosion parent, and I'll hit apply. All of my changes will be saved down here. Then just for safety's sake, I always go save scene and then save project, just to make sure all of my assets, to make sure everything is saved appropriately. And so now I will go File, Open Scene, and I'm going to come back to my test scene, which is named Explosion Start, which is the same one we had from last week. And now clicking on my TNT, you will see that it has this slot for explosion, right, which I showed you before. And I'm just going to click and drag my explosions prefab on there. And now I'll run my scene, and when I click it, oh, nothing happens. Oh, because I still have that line of code commented out. Yep. So let me come over here. Let me uncomment out that line of code. There we go. That'll fix that. And now I will run it, and I will click, and boom, we get that. And that in and of itself is actually kind of cool, right? I mean, look at this. Right? So that looks pretty neat. But we can do better. We can have better effects, right? That is just one particle system, okay? So now let's look at what happens when we start stacking the particle systems, right? And start stacking different effects. And the very next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a light to this explosion, right? We're going to add a point light because basically this explosion is exploding with fire. There's going to be some light. So we'll go ahead and save this scene, and we'll switch back to the other one, which is Effect Builder. Here we go. And so now let's go ahead and make our light. And so I'm going to go ahead and create game object, other, point light. Where are you at? There you are. Click and drag it over to the explosion, so it's nested under there. And I will put it at 0, 0, 0. And I'm going to give it a range of 3. And let's give it a color that looks fireball-y. So we'll do 255, 166, and 0. There you go. That looks like a pretty fireball-y color. And we can leave everything else the way it is, right? So now let's go ahead and on my explosion, I'll click apply. All right, and let's just run the scene here. We don't need to go back to our other scene. And we'll run the scene here. Oh, actually, that's not going to be very helpful because there's nothing for the light to illuminate. So what we're going to see, I'm just going to go ahead and spoiler alert for you. I'd love to just transition over to the other scene and then show you. But basically what you're going to see is even after the explosion, the light's still here. And that doesn't make any sense, right? If the explosion is gone, the fire is gone, the light should also be gone. And so what we're going to do is we're going to create a real quick script, a very basic script, that's going to fade our light as the explosion fades. So I'll come into my scripts folder here, and I'll create a new C# script, which I will call light fade. And we're going to see this is actually just a really simple script. So I'll double click light fade, come over here. And so I'm actually just going to leave all this. Normally I clean up my script a little bit. This is so simple I don't even want to mess with it. I'm just going to say light dot range equals mathf.lerp. And so basically we're going to fade it over time. We're going to lerp between its current range and 0 over time.delta time. And that's it. So we're going to make our light go from bright to dark with one line of code, very basic script. And let me just go ahead and minimize this. And I will take this and I will put it on the point light. Okay. And then I'll go back to explosions. I will hit apply. I will save everything, save my scene, and save my project. And let's transition back over to the other scene. I don't need to do anything here because we already have the prefab on there. And I'm just going to click, and we're going to see a bright illumination that's going to immediately fade. It's kind of hard to see. I don't know if you guys are seeing it through Twitch. It's a subtle effect, but it's an effect there which just adds a little bit, right? If you look on the ground, you'll see it. You'll see the little circle right there. So it's a nice little subtle effect that gives us light to our explosion. All right. So next, what we're going to do is we are going to go ahead and add basically tendrils of flame. So that's a nice fireball there, but let's have little flame tendrils, if you will. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my other scene, Effect Builder, and I'm going to create a new material. So I'm going to come to my materials folder, and this one will be called flame licks, little licks of flame, just like that. And I have a new texture, which if you have the assets, you will see it's called vertical flame lick sheet, which I will drag in there and move back out. That of course got put in the wrong folder. There we go. Now it's under textures. And so for our flame licks, we're basically just going to go with particles, additive, and we're going to choose our texture is going to be, where did it go? Right here, vertical flames. Just like that. So now we have our next texture. So you can see this one's kind of more soft, and this one is much more tendrils of flamey, right? Which will really add kind of a cool effect. And so now what I want to do is I'm actually going to take this central fireball and I'm going to click duplicate. And I will call this one Central Flames. The reason I just duplicated the previous one is because a lot of the stuff is going to be the same, and so I won't have to change again. Real quick, I'll go to Explosion, and I'll just hit Apply, so that gets added to my prefab. And now we can walk through the different features of this one. Now, this one's a little bit different. This one, the duration is going to be 1. Since we're not doing full emissions, really the duration doesn't matter all that much, but it's just nice to have. So we're doing duration of 1. Our start lifetime is, again, going to be 0.4, but instead of, we're going to go 0.4 to 1. And then our speed is going to stay 2 to 4, and our size is going to be 3 to 6. There we go. Our rotation will still be negative 180 to 180, but this time we're going to add gravity. We're going to add inverse gravity. We're going to go negative 0.2. So we want our flames to go up, right, against gravity. All right. And then we are going to, sorry, someone in chat wanted the asset link, so there it is. So we have inverse gravity. We're simulating world space, play on wake, and this time our max particles is going to be 50. We'll go over to emissions. Again, we don't want any rate, but we're going to make our particle burst 50 instead of 20. Shape is going to stay the same at hemisphere with a 0.01 radius. All right, and then we are going to come down to color over lifetime, and this one's going to be slightly different. All right, so basically we want this one to get to 100% really fast, but I'm going to click and drag this one over to about here, and I'm actually only going to make this about a 90, should be fine. So it's going to get real strong, and it's going to fade a little slower. And then I'm going to make this last one, instead of white down here on the bottom, I'm going to make it red. So we're going to go from zero transparent to fully opaque, slowly teeter down to transparent, and go from white to red. All right, which is going to give us a nice look there. Yeah, so now we've got that color right there. So that's our color over lifetime for this one. And then our size over lifetime is going to be, actually the same. Size over lifetime is same. Rotation over lifetime. For this one, let's do a curve. So for our rotation over lifetime, we are going to do a random between two curves. All right, and we're going to go between 0 and 300. So between 0 and 300, and all we're going to do is we're going to create keyframes at the end here, just kind of funnel it down. So they all end up with close to the same rotation. So it'll just kind of be a shape that looks like this, 300 to 0, kind of funneling down like this. All right, because we don't want it to kind of go into the negative direction there. Even though going over 180 will kind of push it in that direction anyway. So that's our rotation over time, and now the last thing we want to mess with here is our texture sheet. And the only real different thing is here is that there's 8 frames of this texture sheet instead of 4. And then in our renderer, we're going to leave everything the way it is, except we are going to take flame licks and put that there instead of fire core. All right. And so now, we're also going to change max size to be 0.5. So now if I stop this and simulate central flames, we can see how that looks a little bit different. So that's our central flames, and this is our fireball. So you see the fireball is kind of a circle, and the flames have more of a distinct fiery shape to them. Okay, so when played all together, which I'm not sure I can do in here, let's go ahead and I'm going to go to my explosions, I'm going to hit apply. Then I will do file, save scene, save project. I will go, nope, open scene, come back to my test scene, run it, and click, and we can see right here in the middle, I don't know if you can see it, I don't know if Twitch is that good, but you will be able to see the little flame pieces, right? And just kind of disperse there. So again, it's a very subtle effect, right? We're just adding to it. Now the next effect we're going to add is going to be not so subtle. We're going to add the smoke now, right? So we've got fire, let's add smoke. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pop back over to my builder scene. Alright, and I'm going to go ahead and add, first off, I need to add a new material. So I'm going to come to materials, I'm going to go create, material, smoke. Alright, and I am going to drag in my texture, which from the assets will be clouds, right there. Alright, and then in the materials, I'm going to say smoke. My shader is going to be particles, and this time it's going to be different. It's going to be alpha blended. Particles, alpha blended. I'm going to select my material, which is that clouds. And for here, what my color is going to be 40, 40, 40, 117. This will make it a very dark material. So this is going to be a nice dark smoke, which is exactly what we want. Alright, and so for central flames, I'm just going to go ahead and right click and duplicate that, and I will call it smoke. I'll come back to explosions and hit apply, so that gets applied to the prefab. And then for smoke, we're going to go ahead and add in the abilities. Alright, so for our duration for this, we're going to go 3. Our start lifetime is going to be 4 to 6. Not 0.4 to 0.6, but 4 to 6. Smoke lingers a lot longer than fire does. Then our speed is actually going to be 0 to 1. It's going to be very slow. Again, it's smoke. Our start size is going to be 2 to 3. And our rotation is going to be left exactly the same. Our color is going to be slightly different. Alright, so we're going to do a difference between two colors. Random between two colors. And the first one is going to be 94, 94, 94, 90. And the second is going to be 221, 221, 221, 83. Okay, so now it's going to randomly pick between these two colors to shade it a little bit. So it'll have some differentiation. We don't want them all to look exactly the same. Our gravity modifier is actually going to be negative 0.1 or 0.01, since it's going to live long enough. We don't want it to go like way too high. No inherent velocity, world space, play on wake, and max particles. This time is going to be 160. Next, we're going to go to emission, and we're going to change our burst to 15. All right, again with no rate. And as a matter of fact, since our max particle is 116, but we're only bursting 15 one time, this really could be 15 here, but I must have left that from something else. So, whatever. Anyway, 0 rate, at 0 time, we're going to burst 15 particles. Alright. Our shape, again, is going to be exactly the same. Alright. And then we are going to do color over lifetime. And our color over lifetime is going to be a little bit different. So our color over lifetime is, let me delete that key. And let me make this completely white. So our color over lifetime is going to be it's going to be 100% to start, and it's going to stay 100% until about 70, and then it will taper out. So it'll be completely dark to begin with, and near the end of the lifetime is when its transparency will fade. Alright, just like that. So it's going to be pretty much solid almost its whole lifetime. Alright, and then we're going to come to our size over lifetime, and this one's the important one to get right, because this is going to make our smoke look really good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go between 0 and 4. So at 0 seconds, our size will be 0. And then at about 0.11, we're going to be about 4. Just like that. And then we're going to taper off down to about 3. Right about there. So we're just gonna puff up real big, and then it's gonna slowly fade out as its alpha fades out. So a question, is this at the end of lifetime or duration? So 0 here is the very beginning life of the particle, and this is the very end life of the particle. So you're going to see it's going to get big really fast and then get smaller. That's kind of how that goes. All right, our rotation over lifetime is going to just be random between two constants. We're going to go negative 45 to 45. So that one's not going to be all that different. And then our texture sheet animation, this texture only has 4 frames. And we're only going to cycle this one time. We don't want 2 cycles there. And then finally our renderer, since smoke is going to be a little bit different here, so we're going to drop our smoke in there. All right? We're going to by distance again, but our sorting fudge is going to be 200. Just like that. And we want it to be able to cast and receive shadows. Now, if you're not dealing with pro, shadows aren't going to really be a big issue, but if you want to cast and receive shadows, because it's smoke. Smoke is going to hang in the air, and it's going to you know, block light, which is what we want. And we can leave our max particle size the way it is. So let's take a look at our smoke now that we've set those settings. And we get this, all right? It just sort of fades out, okay? So that's our smoke effect right there. So let's go ahead and come back to explosions. We'll apply, we'll save scene, we'll save project, we'll hop back over to our test scene. That's the wrong scene. Hop back over to our test scene. And we'll run it. And now we're going to get our explosion, we're going to get our light, and we're going to get nice smoke. Just like that. Which looks pretty awesome. Boom. Alright, and so we get this nice lingering smoke effect, which blocks light and does all that other cool stuff. Alright, so far so good. Now our effect is really kind of taken off. Okay, it's nice little visual and smoke and all that. So at this point, I mean, we could say we're done, but that kind of sucks. Let's add some audio. Alright, let's get some sound going here. So what we want to do is we want to play a big boom sound when this goes off. So I'm going to go ahead and create a folder, which I will name audio. And I have a fiery explosion wave, which I'll just click and drag into there. Fantastic. And everything on this can just be left the way it is. We don't really need to do anything with that. Let's come back to our creation scene. And I am going to try not to blow your ears off this time with the explosion. We'll see how it works there. So I'm going to click on my explosion here, right? And I'm going to add a component, which is going to be audio source. And we're going to click and drag our fiery explosion on there. We're going to see this is a 3D sound, which is exactly what we want. And the only thing we're going to change here is our distance is going to be 40. And that's all we really need to do. That's it. So let's go ahead and we will apply this, and then we will save our scene, and we will save our project. Let's switch over. Now, I don't know what this is going to sound like, so brace yourselves, because I don't know if this is going to be loud or not. I have my audio turned off. So you guys are going to have to let me know how this sounds to you. Hopefully that's not too loud. I've kind of reduced the volume. I know last time I kind of blew you guys' ears off with an explosion. Was everyone able to hear it? First off, I should make sure that the audio is working, right? Because there's just a switch here on my end. Yeah, and so particular sound. Now, you're going to notice with this particular sound that there's a fiery sound at the end. Right? And that's because there's a lot of things we can do with this. First off, what we really should do is spawn another particle system that does loop, which has fire, right? That just sits right here and burns continuously, right? So that's something we can do to expand this. And we can have tendrils of flame and stuff like that. I'm looking at the time here because I have actually 3 more particle systems I can show you how to make to make this better. So yeah, we've got time. Alright, so minimum distance is the distance it can be heard from before the Doppler effect kicks in, right? So if you're 40 and closer, you're going to get 100% of the volume. If you're 41 and further away, it's going to start dropping off. Okay, so one of the questions here is, what if we want a little bit of debris flinging out? I'm actually going to show you how to do that. And really, all you have to do is put some meshes on the tips of it. But here, let me show you. So let's come back to our other, nope, no. Did not want to open a new project. Open our other scene. So let's look at how we can create basically tendrils of an explosion, tendrils of flame and smoke. All right, so we're going to create a new particle effect, and I'm actually going to start from scratch on this one. So I'm going to game object create other particle system, which I will name streaks, just like that. And I will place this under the explosions, and then I'll come to explosion, hit apply, so it becomes part of the prefab. And I will make this at 0, 0, 0, just like that. So streaks is basically going to be interesting. It's going to be a particle system that doesn't actually have particles. We're simply going to use non-rendered particles to create other particle systems, right? Now that doesn't make any sense right now, but I will show you what I mean. And so let me go ahead and first off, our duration is going to be 3. It is not looping. All right. Our start lifetime, where are you at? Start lifetime, random between 2 constants, is going to be 2 to 4. Our start speed is going to be random between 2 constants, 1 to 25. Our start size is going to be 1, and our rotation is going to be our classic negative 180 to 180. All right. Our color will be exactly the same. This time our gravity multiplier is going to be 1. 100% gravity is going to be applied. We're going to simulate it in world space, and our max particles is going to be 50. Just like that. All right. And so now our mission is not going to be is not going to be oh, wait a minute. What do I want here? I have the wrong stuff written in my notes. It's going to be burst, and we will send out what do I want to do here? This is what happens when your notes are wrong. I'm like, wait a minute, I didn't write down what looks good here. Let's try that. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, that looks good. We'll leave it at 30. So 0 time 30 emissions right there. Yeah, okay. So again, 0 rate, 1 burst of 30 particles. We'll leave that at that. Our shape is going to be a cone with a radius of 45, or with an angle of 45, and our radius is going to be 0.01. So it's going to emanate from a very small place and throw out in every direction, just like that. So that's our shape, cone, angle 45, radius 0.01. All right. And then we're going to have color over lifetime. Color over lifetime. And this one we're going to do the one I had showed you before. We're basically going to fade in and fade out. Just like that. So 100%'s here, and then fade in and fade out. That's going to be our color over lifetime. And then our size over lifetime. It's going to be very basic. Size over lifetime. And our size over lifetime is going to go from 0 to 0. And it is going to 1.5. We're just going to kind of pop it up here a little bit. Just sort of like this. So it's going to get big, and it's going to taper, and then it's going to drop off. And we're going to see a shape like this. It's not exact. I'm just sort of clicking and whatnot. But this is going to give us kind of the shape we want. All right, so that's going to be our size over lifetime right there. Our rotation over lifetime is going to be our basic negative 180 to 180. Okay, and this is something we are going to have. We're going to have collision. Okay, because we want these little pieces to be able to hit stuff. All right, and our collision is going to be world, and yes, that's less efficient, but it'll be fine. We're going to dampen it 0.6. We're going to give it a bounce of 0.2. Lifetime loss is going to be 0, and our minimum kill speed is going to be 0.02. It's going to bounce off of everything, and it's only going to have medium collision detection, which is fine with me. Okay, so right there is our collision. And then finally, we're turning renderer off. All right, so you can see we can't see any particles because these particles themselves are not important. we don't care about these particles. Instead, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating sub-emitters. And the sub-emitters are what is going to be important to us. So this one's just going to be blank. So I'm going to click the sub-emitters here, and I'm going to create, at birth, I'm going to click an add. And so we're going to get a new sub-emitter particle system, just labeled sub-emitter. And I will rename this flames. All right. So now you can already see kind of what's happening here. We're getting these little tiny pieces, right? Now the streaks emitter doesn't have a renderer, so what you're really seeing is this second emitter right there. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through here, and I'm going to say it's going to be a duration of 3. It's not going to loop. All right. So this is for our flames. By the way, I'm going to come back up to explosion and hit apply. So that gets added to our prefab. So flame duration 3, it's not going to loop, no start delay. Our start lifetime is going to be 5, sorry, 0.5, whoops, 0.5. Our start speed is going to be 0. Our start size is going to be a random between 2, which is going to be 0.7 to 1.5, just like that. Our start rotation is going to be our classic negative 180 to 180. Negative 180 to 180. Gravity is 0. World coordinate system. Play on wake. Max particles 500. All right. We're also going to turn emission off. All right. We're just going to go ahead and let the parent emitter handle this. So emissions is off. Our shape is going to be a cone with an angle of 60, just like that. So that's going to be our shape. Our velocity over lifetime. So this is where we're going to add our speed. Our velocity over lifetime is going to be in world, and it's going to be a random between 2, or I'm sorry, it's going to be a curve. And so we're only interested in the y here, and we're going to go from 4 at the start to 0 at the end. So basically it's going to start very fast in the y direction, and then it's going to slow down significantly. 4 to 0 in the y direction. All right. Our color over lifetime, where are you at? There we are. Our color over lifetime is going to be our classic. Right about there. And we'll fade out. There we go. So that's our color over lifetime. But we're also going to fade to red. So it's going to get darker red as it goes. So it'll look like that. That's our color over lifetime. And then we're going to go ahead and size over lifetime, which will look just like the last one we did, where we're going to create this bell curve kind of thing, just like that, which will give us the shape or the size that we want, which will ultimately look pretty cool. So that's our size over lifetime, rotation over lifetime. Again, I feel like a broken record. I know this part's kind of boring, but trust me, it's going to be cool. Making particle systems and effects can be very tedious, but the end result is pretty neat. Then we're going to go texture sheet animator. So this is going to use our flame licks material. So 1 and 8, it's going to be a single row. We'll cycle twice, just like that. And then finally our renderer, we are going to grab our flame licks, drop it on there, sort mode by distance, no casting shadows, no receive shadows, no fudge. All right. And so now we get something that looks kind of like that. All right. So very basic, just kind of throws these sparks out. Now, as was stated, I think some people are talking about it in chat, if I were to put a piece of, I don't know, flak or a mesh of debris on the tips of those, right? I could have another renderer do that even, or another emitter do that even. I would, in fact, have it look like this thing was blowing apart, right? That's very easy to do. I'm just kind of showing you how to kind of structure this stuff, all right? But yeah, so we can put little debris and stuff on the tips of these things, and it actually makes it very, very simple. All right, so that's our flames. The last thing we're going to do is we're going to add smoke, and then we're going to go ahead and play around with this. So with the smoke, all I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate flames, duplicate it, and rename it smoke. And I'm going to come back up to the streaks, and I'm just going to click and drag smoke also onto the birth effect. So birth should have flames and smoke now. I'll come to explosion, I'll hit apply. There we go. So now in smoke, let's go ahead and modify smoke to be what we want. We'll do 3 is fine. Our start lifetime, we are going to change this to be random between 2 constants. And our start lifetime will be 2 to 3, just like that. Our start speed is going to be 0 to 3. There we go. Our start size is going to be 1 to 3. Smoke's bigger than fire. Rotation's the same. Gravity is 0. No velocity. World space. Play on wake. 500 particles. Again, emission is off. Our shape is still our cone with 60 there, so we're leaving that the same. Velocity over lifetime. We're actually, wrong one. Velocity over lifetime. We're not doing curves. We're going to do random between 2 constants. And our 2 constants is going to be randomly between 0.5 and 5. Or, I'm sorry, 0.2 and 5. Just like that. Also in world space. Okay. And then we're going to do our color over lifetime. I keep saying finally, and finally is not correct. Our color over lifetime is just going to be, we're going to just fade to white, or stay white, none of that redness. Alright. And we are going to do, I don't know, we're going to make this fully opaque sooner, and we're going to let it fade more. So just something kind of like this. So it'll get to white fast, and then kind of fade after that. So that's our color over lifetime. All right. We're going to do our size over lifetime. Our size over lifetime is going to be real simple here. We're going to go from, say, like 0.5 to 1. Like, say right about there. So we're going to go from 0.5 to 1, and we'll stay at 1. Just like that. There we go. So it'll stay full size. So it's basically going to look like it plumes out, which is kind of the effect we want to get. A lot of what we do is with these curves. That's where we get a lot of the finesse and shape and stuff like that. Our rotation over lifetime is going to be the same, -80, 80. Our tile sheet, or texture sheet animation is just going to be to 4. And then our renderer is going to be right here. We're not going to use flame licks. We're going to use smoke. We're going to fudge at 200 again with shadows. All right. And now let's go ahead and try this out. So I'm not going to run it in here. Instead, I'm just going to go ahead and save my scene. I applied my prefab already. Save the project. I'm going to come over to my other scene, and we're just going to see this all together. So I'll run it, and that's what we do. And we get the little smoke trail as well. Let me, where's my camera at? Let me move my camera back. There we go, so we can see more of the effect. There we go. So if I had put a mesh at the end of those tendrils, right, you'd get effectively what looked like the crate blowing apart. Alright, so obviously, and we can use higher resolution particles and stuff like that to really make that look better, but you get the idea. And so much time can be spent tweaking these to make it absolutely what we want. So let's talk about where we can kind of go from here, what we can kind of do with this. So one of the suggested changes I would make, honestly if it was me, is I would make one more particle effect, or particle system, of just lingering looping flames that was placed here, and so it just kept constantly burning, right? Because really, I mean, falling apart, there really should be some fire sitting here. We've got the audio that kind of tapers down to that fiery sound anyway, so we really should have it. So that's one thing I'd change. You know, adding meshes and stuff like that is also other things that we can in fact do. Let's see, how am I doing on time? I got a little bit more time. Also, what I want to do is, let's come over here to open scene, scenes, explosion in space. So here's the explosion in space thing we had before, and now what I'm going to do, I've modified my detonate script. This is from last week, and I'm just going to go ahead and put my explosion prefab in there. and show you guys this. Oh, whoops. I modified the prefab to use gravity. Let me fix that. No more gravity. There we go. And we'll see. Ooh, and of course, I need to modify the script to actually instantiate the effect. I always have that commented out. Okay, let's try it now. And so we get like these neat explosive effects, right? We can put these on anything, we can put them anywhere, whatever, right? And so the idea here is not that I wanted to show you just like one way to do something, right? But I wanted to show you that we can layer a bunch of particle systems on top of each other to achieve all sorts of awesome effects, right? So it's not really a matter of just like, oh, this is how I do this one very, very specific thing. It really should be a matter of, look, I can achieve pretty much anything I want through our particle system, right? Our particles could be pieces of debris. They could not render at all, instead just be used to emit other particle effects and other meshes and stuff like that. I mean, we can do all sorts of wackiness, right? We can create just a large variety of different particles and particle effects and things that don't even look like particles, right? Just different effects altogether. So it's a very powerful system. All right, so I'm about out of time. So basically, we talked about the particle systems and how we can create these prefabs to be used over and over and over again. And we looked at adding fireballs and flame pieces to it and little tendrils of flame and smoke that fly off. And we looked at adding the forces from explosions and audio to it and really creating a collapsible, maintainable effect, right? I can take this prefab and all of these things right here and put that into any project, and I have a viable explosion. Honestly, if you created something unique, you can just take these things, package it up, put it on the asset store, and sell it. There's no reason you can't do any of that stuff, right? And so it's really nice. It's very modular, and you can take it anywhere you want and utilize it and stuff, and it's pretty darn cool. So, all right. So at this point, I've pretty much wrapped up. I am gonna finish up by saying questions, comments, concerns, follow us on Twitter at Unity3D, at Mike Geig, which is me, at Will Goldstone, and at the Ant Ranch. One of the questions here, is there a collection of videos like this? Yes, if you go to our page, unity3d.com/learn. Let me pull it up for you. So here on the screen, oh, not yet. Here on the screen, unity3d.com/learn. Also, you can go to just live training, but I'll just take you to learn. Here's the learn page. Here are all our recorded tutorials, and we also have live training right here, which you can see everything that's coming up. By the way, this was today. We have a scripting primer Wednesday, 2D character controllers next week. We have a holiday hangout and nav meshes coming up. You can also click archive to see all the videos we have done so far that are live and more so and whatnot. So yes, we have all that stuff. So check it out. I'll throw this back up there while we finish up. So thank you all for coming along and watching. I know this one was kind of boring. Like, it wasn't nearly as good as the laser one because it's very tedious working through all the different modules of the particle systems. But what you get in the end is pretty awesome. All right. So the hard work definitely becomes worth it, you know, once you're done. So thank you all for sticking through it. I know it gets a bit long and wordy and stuff like that. But yeah. Anyway. You all have a fantastic week. Like I said, Wednesday is another scripting primer. Come check it out. And then next week is 2D animation, 2D character controllers using the new 2D tools with Mechanib and stuff like that. So yeah, come check it out and learn. And yeah, very much. So thank you, everybody, and have a great week.